Hi everybody, welcome to Aimee Nolte Music. I have a guest with me today and we're in the concert hall called the Madsen Recital Hall in my alma mater of Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah. This is Scott Holden. And Scott, what's your official title here at BYU?
I'm a classical pianist. I'm director of the piano program here. I'm a professor of music.
Nice. Scott and I met in New York City. We both lived there for a while.
In the previous century, actually.
That's right.
When we were 9.
But Scott went to school at Julliard, and every once in a while he would get a gig thrown his... Because Julliard would give you all these gigs after you graduated, right?
Well, it was one of the great perks of going there. I got a ton of work playing cocktail parties, wedding receptions, all kinds of things.
That's so cool.
And after I graduated, I continued to freelance for a long time.
That's a good plug for Julliard right there. But sometimes you would get gigs that were a little out of your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I remember. Should we tell? They called and they said they wanted me to play a gig for Lionel Hampton for like his 90th birthday party or something like this at the French consulate.
That's right.
And I thought, okay, I'm pretty good at faking my way through a lot of jazz, but I'm not going to be able to fake my way in front of this guy. So God. I said, Amy, you want to do this gig? I'm definitely out of my element.
I was probably out of my element there too, but that's one of my coolest gig stories is playing right in front of Lionel Hampton while he sat there and made the face that he was so famous for making and a sound where you, like that. I didn't have much to do with the classical world while I was here at BYU, like at all. So I didn't really, I didn't know the professors and I didn't go to concerts or recitals. I was all wrapped up in my own, world of practicing. And,
sure, yeah.
But how many of you are there? How many piano professors are here at BYU?
There's 4 piano faculty here, full-time, and then others about the same amount adjunct as well.
And I know you have your quartet, right?
Yeah.
What are you called?
The American Piano Quartet.
The American Piano Quartet. Is that always the 4 that are at BYU, or does that change?
It changes. In fact, one of our guys right now teaches at Boise State. But yeah, it's 4 of us on 2 pianos, 4 concert pianos on 2 pianos, and it's really fun. So it makes an enormous amount of noise, and you can make a lot of notes happen at the same time.
Are you known for playing any particular repertoire? Like are you like the dude who, I don't know.
No, I played a lot of Bach this past year, and people were saying, "You're a really good Bach player." That was a really nice compliment. I've played a lot of Haydn, Schumann, Rachmaninoff. I've always tried to play repertoire in addition to some kind of standard pieces, things that are not known. Mm-hmm. So I like scouring the repertoire to find some amazing piece that nobody's ever heard that is really satisfying.
I didn't know that Scott even plays around with jazz until today. I knew he was a great fan of the music, but we sat down, me thinking mostly that Scott would help me maybe with technique today, but Scott sat down and started playing this wonderful arrangement he did of, what did you play? When I Fall in Love. Will you play a little of that, Scott?
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm a little embarrassed to do this in front of you because this is not my
lovely.
world.
I'm gonna grab my camera and come get you. That's wonderful. Would you play me something else that is fairly involved in your other
world?
Yeah, your other world.
Sure. Here's some.
Just a little.
Sure. Here's some Bach.
Gorgeous. Oh, what is that?
That's some of the Sixth Partita.
Wow. Oh yes, absolutely beautiful. And I love watching your body also and what you're doing with it. I often wonder about my own posture. I wonder, could you talk about posture for a second?
Sure.
Tell everybody what I do wrong. No.
Oh no, I didn't. No, not remotely.
How about your bench height?
Okay, well, I think a starting place I like to be at, and it really, in some ways, just depends on the repertoire. But a starting place I like to be at is to have the bottom of my arm roughly parallel with the ground. But it's a very fluid position because there are times, and I'm a bit of a sloucher actually, and there's certain repertoire I have to make sure I'm not in that position, and there's other times when I'm using other body parts that are more excessively. So like if I'm playing Rachmaninoff, I'm going to be using a lot of upper body strength. In fact, last year I played an entire book of Rachmaninoff etudes, which was a big project, and I lost 10 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
Playing that repertoire. It's really athletic.
That's amazing.
And so it's been a few months since I practiced that, but
holy moly.
So you can see that I'm a lot more straight backed, and I'm really thinking that power coming from my shoulders, and I'm not going to be able to get that kind of strength for 40 minutes of playing if I'm in kind of a slumpy position.
Mm-hmm. There are some very famous concert pianists who do.
Yeah. Glenn Gould being a big one, who's often very much leaned over. Not unlike Bill Evans,
That's right.
who was always in this position, and
Keith Jarrett, not to mention.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a personal thing. Like Horowitz, I wouldn't say he was in a slumpy position, but he definitely doesn't sit in this kind of position. If you watch Evgeny Kissin, the great Russian classical pianist, monster classical pianist, I mean, he sits very straight backed. His arms are really projected this way. But in some repertoire, so if I'm playing like that, if I'm playing some Bach, I can be a little bit more probably slumped over than I would normally if I was playing. And it depends on the range of the keyboard too. So I mean, the more I'm leaning into the piano, the more I lose peripheral vision. I can't see, the scope of the keyboard. If I'm playing, that's a narrow span. Yeah. If I'm playing something, something that covers a bigger range, I'm going to be, and again, I'm using my upper body strength, so I'm going to be leaning back, a little more straight back. So, ultimately, though, the goal is to make sure there's as minimal tension as possible. I mean, it's hard enough to play this thing. So when you're adding tension, and the usual thing I see with my students is that their shoulders go up. And I remember being about 18, and my teacher was always bugging me about my shoulders going up because you'd play difficult repertoire. And the problem is you're pushing down and you're lifting up at the same time. You're fighting against yourself. So when I was about 18, I had a piece of paper I would put on the piano that says, "Drop your shoulders," so I can. I'm not pressing down and lifting up at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, you eliminate so much tension that way, right?
Yeah. Something I find that I constantly remind myself of is that I sometimes hold tension in my jaw.
I feel you there.
And any of that kind of tension in that kind of repertoire, like I was just playing, it's all going to kind of trickle down and work against you. And we're very comfortable here, but if there's 500 people here or 1,000 people, your body's going to be much more tense. So I want to find ways to eliminate all of that as much as possible.
Yeah, that's so true. I find for myself that when I'm playing alone, I tend to be pretty relaxed.
Yeah.
But But when I'm with a trio or a quartet,
Yeah.
And things are heating up, and I'm in the moment and feeling more, I don't know, more drive to the music, that's when I start to feel tension in my body.
Yeah.
And I have to remind myself, just, cut
this,
it out.
This weird thing. So I am officially a classical pianist, but I used to play a lot of these kinds of cocktail music gigs and so on, which were sometimes long hours. Like when I was a teenager, I would play at the mall for these 4-hour shifts. And I found that I had, strangely enough, 2 sets of technique. Now, when you're playing kind of serious classical music, that was one style of my kind of body position. But I found that when I was playing these long gigs, just went on and on and on. And I never felt like I could take a break because it was really obvious that I wasn't playing, which now I don't think I would do. But I had a very different technique. Now, it wasn't as technically driven, but I would find that I'd be in a lot more of this hunched over position. Not necessarily because I'm more comfortable, but I found that I still, when I play this position, this style, I kind of revoked that I hate to even compare myself to Bill Evans.
It's
but,
your inner
but it's my inner Bill Evans.
Yeah.
This position, and my leg moves around, and but when I'm playing more classical music, I don't move like that.
You're like Jekyll and Hyde.
Right? I don't know if
This
it's
is
like
dangerous.
It's like I feel like
right
it's
here.
bad manners, to assume that kind of position.
Assume the jazz position.
So I'm a lot more. I think in this position, in classical music, I tend to see the tip of my nose. Not because it's especially long, I hope, but because it's like it's there, looking down at the keyboard. But when I'm playing in the other world, I tend to be looking kind of directly at the keyboard with no middleman schnoz here.
It's interesting. I mean, I think of my favorite, one of my favorite players, Oscar Peterson, and you see Oscar Peterson at the piano, and he does go from these kind of kind of lines like that where he'll lean in a little bit, but then just a second later he's in this marvelous stride. And leaning back, and so.
But that could be like the peripheral vision idea.
Yeah, it might be.
I mean, you just can't do that when your torso's in the way or you've cut it out half your vision. There's not a lot of video footage of Art Tatum playing. No. But the little bit he seems to be in it's like textbook kind of classical perfect position too. He's so relaxed and he doesn't have one bit of excess motion. It's just he's almost like a statue, except with a big grin.
That's right.
I experiment too. I spent a week earlier this year just doing a lot of practice with my eyes closed. In certain repertoire that wouldn't work, but some repertoire does. I was just.
It can be a nice. I understand that. It can give you a new headspace.
I think visually, scientifically, what we see and occupies so much of our brain. So I can listen better, and sometimes I do a little bit on stage. But then I feel a little self-conscious. Plus, I don't want to do it with my eyes closed and then miss something. Well, that was stupid. You should open his eyes.
Actually, that's funny. That's something people ask me about a lot. Is like the headspace that you're in when you're on stage, and how you, What if that idea occurs to you that you might look stupid in the middle of, you've got every seat in the house full, and you're in the middle of some complicated passion. You think, I look like an idiot right now. But wait,
yeah. Sometimes people will say, why do you make such funny faces while you're playing? So I must look a little stupid at times.
Yeah, I hate those comments.
That's what you got out of the concert? Thanks.
That's right. I can remember when I would be in classical recitals as a kid, everything was in my fingers, like it was all memorized.
Yeah.
And so I could be, in the middle of, the adagio section or whatever, and my mind was completely on school and friends, and then I would realize that and come back around to myself.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, there are people watching me.
Yeah.
yeah, I still don't know quite how to get out of that kind of thing. Do you have advice for people about that?
Well, it's interesting because sometimes when you're in that space, which is a space where you're not really trying hard, but your body knows what to do, and you're kind of not in the way of yourself, sometimes you actually do pretty well. It's not that I want to play a whole recital being like daydreaming, but sometimes when you're actually totally focused and involved, you can actually be kind of in the way of yourself. I mean, you've played something literally 1,000 times or more to overthink can be a problem, but at the same time, I don't want to be daydreaming about other things. I've got a lot of advice about that if you... So
you should make a video about that. People
well,
enjoy it.
yeah. I mean, it's always a hard. It's always kind of like a razor edge, you know. Be involved but not too involved, and letting your body do what it knows how to do.
When you're playing a piece, how often are you thinking? Now we've modulated to the 4. Or here comes, you know, the 5 of 5.
Yes.
Are you thinking that stuff?
As I've gotten older, I think about that more and more and more. But the thing is, I mean, this is all related to memory, but I don't want to think. I mean, the first thing to go when you're nervous is your muscle memory, and that's a huge part of playing. But I want to make sure I have kind of backup plans for when if that fails, and at some point it inevitably will. I mean, there's a lot of it's like I'm thinking orally, like I sing along while I'm playing internally. I'm always thinking in harmonic blocks. In terms of thinking, oh, this is the 5 of 5. I don't so much think that way, but I think, oh well, now we've gone to D major, and the piece was in C major, so maybe I'm thinking that way. But I really think that way in terms of classical style, meaning like Beethoven, Haydn, Mozart, Schubert, that era, because when they're writing in sonata allegro form, this is actually a big thing for me. It's a really abstract template that they have to write in, where they have to go to a certain. Well, they generally go to a certain key scheme that they have to follow, and really the great composers are the ones who don't do what they're supposed to do, or at least they kind of do it. Okay, I'll do it my way, but I'll get to what I'm supposed to do, but I'm going to do it in this kind of weird way. So I think for me, for a pianist who's playing that music and is not really thinking that way, they don't actually understand the plot of the piece in classical style, because here's this set ingredients that they were supposed to do, and then if they don't follow them, this informs a lot of the piece and why it went to certain keys.
Right.
Like if he's going the wrong way in the circle of fifths, if he's going counterclockwise in the circle of fifths when they should be going clockwise, like this is very odd. So, but I tend not to think it as Roman numeral function as I think that's more secondary.
Key centers.
I tend to think of it as key centers.
Yeah, and I'm the same, except there are jazz standards that, like we were playing All the Things You Are earlier, and I do when I think of that,
lots of circle fifths.
Lots of circle fifths. So I think here I'm in the key of A flat, whole thing, key of A flat, still. But now I know that we're going to the key of C.
Yeah.
Now I'm in C for a while, right?
Yeah.
As soon as I hit the C minor,
yeah,
we're in E flat, because the C minor is, it's the minor 6 chord in the key of E flat. So you move through these total centers, but before I even start the tune, like say I'm going to accompany a vocalist,
yes,
I'll tell myself, all right, the key's normally in A flat.
Yeah. If
the vocalist wants to sing it in C, then the first modulation we're going to do is going to be to E, and so I try to, but I rarely. Well, I wouldn't say. Sometimes I do numbers, but sometimes I talk myself through in letters too.
I love that about jazz pianists. That if I said, "Hey, let's play All Things You Are," first thing you'd say is, "What key?"
Right.
I'm not going to say like, "Let's play their Passionata." You're like, "What key do you want to do it today?" Well, there's only one.
Yeah, that's true. That would never happen. And even for vocalists in classical music, you can never transpose. They sing things that are in the right.
Yeah. Well, it's often transposed into other keys depending on the voice type.
I didn't know that.
Which can be a problem. I remember once learning an entire song cycle by Barber of about 16 difficult songs. And I went to my first rehearsal, And she said, and we started just like, oh, what key did
Oh
I
my
learned the
gosh.
entire set in the wrong keys because you can buy it in like, a third lower and a third lower than that.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, if you ever come into a singer in classical repertoire, ask what the keys or
Oh
the
my gosh.
voice type that they want to do, high or medium high or so.
That's crazy. Do you want to play a duet?
Yeah, this will be fun.
Let's do it.
Should we do all the things you are?
Yeah.
Okay. This is definitely me stepping out of my comfort zone with a real jazz pianist and not a kind of fake but dedicated fan of jazz as I am. So.